Hi, everybody. Welcome to the first SIG download of 2024. We're going to give just a second or two for everyone to join and get comfy, and then we will get started. All right, everybody. We gave everyone literally a minute, so we will get started here. It's a short show. Very excited to get through today's show. It's going to be really, really exciting. Welcome again. Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Thank you for spending your time with us today on the SIG download, the first episode of 2024. Very excited to have yet another one of our brilliant researchers, Maxim Zvodchik, joining me today. Hi, Maxim.
Thank you.
How's it going? You want to introduce yourself really quick, what you do, what excites you about working in security research?
Yeah, thank you, Trisha. So I'm Maxim. I'm responsible for the application security, threat research, and data science in Akamai. And I think what excites me, besides watching Studio Ghibli movies, if you know, um, application security. I'm dealing with application security for 10 years, and it still excites me. I think like the two things why I like so much. The first thing is the innovation pace you have in applications, web applications, right? Almost every month you have a new JavaScript library, some web language, a lot of innovation there, a lot of new opportunities, fresh threats as well. So that's really exciting. And the second one is the human factor. I think application developers, although being smart, they're human and prone to errors. Just an example for like SQL injection vulnerability, vulnerability from the 90s, right? You would expect that there's so many technology out there to query the database in a safe way. But still, we still see the same amount of SQL injections as we've seen
quite a bit.
A decade ago.
Yeah, it is very interesting. The human element, I'm going to come back to that in just a second because there is a lot that can be said about that. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, welcome. Thank you for joining us. There are attachments down at the end of down at the bottom of the screen. So any of the links that we talk about throughout the show will be visible there and accessible there. So just wanted to let you know about that. Now, let's get back to the human element because I wanted to introduce something that I have not done. Last episode, I talked a ton about the human element in cybersecurity, particularly around the holidays. People are distracted. Cybersecurity is a human business, right? And we talk a lot about tech tips and defense tips and all that kind of stuff, but we don't necessarily talk about human tips, and we should in cybersecurity. So what I want to do is introduce a very quick segment that will come in occasionally on the show. I'm calling the human element, and it's going to be something that I've learned or one of my guests has learned that can help the human part of cybersecurity. And so the one that I want to mention today, and this will be in the attachments at the end of the show, is the Danish concept of hygge. That's Hyggge. And effectively, it's a feeling. It's not really a thing. The most direct translation is cozy or comfy. And you might think that sounds nothing like cybersecurity, but actually it does. The reason this came about was because it's cold. It's really cold in Denmark. The winters are not pleasant. It's dark. Trust me, I was just there. It is rough. All right. And I live in New England, so I know what the winters are, but it is really, really hard. And they know this, and they know that it's going to happen, and they know it's going to be really hard. And so they try and find the tiniest joys that they can during that time so that whenever it gets really bad, their cups are full. They are mentally in a better place. And we struggle with burnout a lot here in cybersecurity. And I think that has a lot to do with the human element when we talk about these things. So for those of you who are watching, look up hygge, try and smile about something today. And hopefully we won't have another threat by the end of the day that we won't be smiling about. So just wanted to say that really quick. Was there something you wanted to add on the human element, Maxim? about
No,
cyber or otherwise?
yeah, I totally agree. I think like with the burnout, right? Like since Log4j, I think we've seen all like
Oh,
how you work like for 3 weeks, right, without weekends, and
yes.
that's kind of we keep seeing not the same level of Log4j, but the amount of the vulnerabilities is growing every year. You know, we see the number of CVs we monitor, especially we see the proportion of the
Yes.
CVs, and I mentioned AppSec, right? So in web application security, and definitely I know we see APTs also showing a much greater interest exploiting those vulnerabilities. You know, why kind of trying to spread classic malware, right, and to be burned by an antivirus, they
Yep.
just can go through the wall. For example, own an VPN, you know, SSL VPNs, right, like with Ivanti and other cases, exploit a web
Yes.
vulnerability there. Another example is instead of doing lateral movement within the Active Directory domain, the attackers today might prefer to exploit a web vulnerability in the management interface of vSphere and actually get access to all the virtual machines, right, and all the crown jewels that the organization has without a domain admin. So definitely, it's one of the, yeah, I think of the things we see more
Yeah.
of.
That's oh yeah, that's a good point. The Avanti one, of course, was gigantic. We I just saw an article that it is under mass exploitation. The big vulnerability that came out last month. So yes, you're absolutely right. It's all about access, right? What the as the threat landscape changes, so do the attackers.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
It's not
and
just
that's
defense that changes.
And actually, you know, we are talking about humans on the defense side, but we need to understand, right? The attackers, you know, are human as well, and human element
Yes,
applies there as well.
that's
And
true.
maybe we can talk through this session, talk about different human element when you know that applies to attackers as well. So that's
Oh yes,
yeah.
absolutely. It's
Until
it's very
AI
important.
replaces all all of us, so that's yeah.
Yes, for now, the humans are the ones writing and defending and attacking. We'll see where that goes. That's been quite in the news a lot lately. I feel like every article when I was looking for content was about AI. Just everybody is interested in AI, so we're going to have an interesting show on that in the future. Will be on the lookout for that. Um, yeah, so quickly, I want to get into just some of the things that happened between last show and now, and then we'll get into the web shells because I really want to spend some time there. Um, some of the Akamai was very busy with research last month. There was a lot of really cool stuff that our researchers found. One of the ones that just came out. This past week was a Mirai based Noah bot. So there is another Mirai based botnet that is on the loose. We've been monitoring this for since the beginning of last year. We saw over 800 unique attacker IPs with this, so it's something to be aware of. That link, of course, will be in the attachments. The other one that I want to mention is you may remember March of last year, way in the days of yore, there was a massive Outlook vulnerability that was announced by Microsoft that had been actually utilized, exploited in the wild by a Russian threat actor, discovered by Microsoft and worked with CISA. In March, a patch for this came out. And in May, one of our own researchers, Ben Barnea, found a bypass to that patch that allowed the original exploit to act exactly the way that it was originally intended. Ben has now found two other vulnerabilities within the same components that can be chained together to do the exact same thing. So be aware of that. Also, there's some really cool science around sound and how sound can be manipulated within cyber. So in the part 2 of it's really an interesting read. So just wanted to be aware of those things. I'll be talking a lot more about that one on our upcoming webinar on the 31st, where we're talking about the SOTI. So if you want to learn more about the Outlook stuff, come stop in there. But one of the other pieces that we worked on, actually, Maxim, we worked on together, and that was talking about the similar vein to the Avanti. We saw the struts vulnerability just exploding with activity. So, do you want to talk through that, and then kind of transition into maybe why web shells are being exploited as much as they are?
Yeah, so Struts, I think, reminded me a bit of 2017 when the last kind of big Struts vulnerability came out, and we've seen the big breach in Equifax, right, and the CISO leaving because of that, and how businesses struggle to patch, right? It was enough time. I think it was like a month after the publication. So struts and the server side template injection vulnerabilities continue being, the kind of one of the big attack vectors today, because it's easy to use on development side, but it's also poses some threats. Yeah, we've seen massive exploitation of those vulnerabilities across our platform, different threat actors trying to deliver different payloads. And you mentioned web shells, and yeah, web shells is the tool to go for many APT threat actors today to, as you mentioned, and instead of using the classic malware, right, and burn yourself with an antivirus, many attackers prefer to blend within the website, just planting the web shell. So maybe just to explain, a web shell is a web page, right? It's just a script with the target programming language. Let's say we have an ASP.NET website or a PHP website. So the attacker, after exploiting some vulnerability in the website to get persistency and persistent access to the server itself, they will plant another web page. Just another web page, which they're trying to hide. Many times we see they're hiding those in static directories like JavaScript and CSS. So no developer that deploy new code or something won't notice there. And I think the main kind of reasons why attackers, and including APTs, right, moving more to those web shells, I think the first one is, as I mentioned, there are more web vulnerabilities today, right? The web vulnerability became a very popular infiltration vector for many adversarials. So once you exploit a web server, it's very easy to deploy, right? To use the same kind of language, right, and the same platform to deploy a vector. So one reason we mentioned it's a script, right? It's not a binary, meaning that antiviruses really have a really hard time to detect those. The second one is blending within the traffic. The classic malware will open some connection, reverse shell or some to their CNC, some TCP connection, which like every NG firewall will be, spotting immediately. With the web shell, it's different, right? It's just another web page. It's HTTP traffic to the same host name and just another page name, another parameter. So it's really easy to blend within the legit traffic. And I think the third one you mentioned, again, the human element, right? So web shells are nice, right? Web shells are web technology. Attackers would like, instead of using, console, right, and command line school in the movies, but eventually when you need to, to go fast, right, before you being caught inside the network, you need to, you would like to have some nice UI, right? Nice interface.
Right.
So web
Yeah.
shells are
Make
web
it easier.
page. Yeah, using web technologies like JavaScript, CSS, and we talked about the WSO-NG web shell with more advanced functionality that we've seen attackers using in different Magento. It's an e-commerce platform attacks. So yeah, that's about the web shells.
Yeah. So to your point, I mean, accessibility, right? Everything is on the web now, and it can also allow for attackers to take advantage of people, smaller businesses, smaller companies that you mentioned, the Magento stuff, that may not even know what to look for, much like even they might not even know what to look for with traditional malware ways, much less we can't tell people not to go on a web page. Come on. Like, you know what I mean? It's a similar thing with phishing, where we trained people to click on links and then said, don't click on links. Well, web shells are the same thing. Like, it's another web page. We can't tell people just don't go on the web. That's ludicrous. So yeah, it makes sense that the attackers are taking advantage of this, and it's quite scary. There's so web shells themselves have evolved a lot too. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? You mentioned like WSO-NG. You want to talk about a little bit of the newer capabilities that we can be looking out
Yeah,
for?
so definitely there was an evolution, right? Web shells it's not a new concept, right? Like for you guys that maybe not familiar, but web shells originally started as like webmasters, web admins were using those to manage the web servers, and then attackers like just hooked on this kind of way of managing web servers for their own purposes. So I think the new functionality, the extended functionality that we see besides kind of the basic command execution and exploring files on the service, automatic database connection, exploring network scanning, even adapting to the cloud environments. You can get some AWS metadata or connect to databases, more modern in-memory databases like Redis. You have like built-in privilege escalation tools, so it's really saves a lot of time for attackers to upload tools to see what's the system, right? Like to experiment and test. So yeah, that's on web shells.
Oh, wow. Yeah. What a way to end. I can't believe we're already at the end of the show. But yes, thank you so much. I think web shells are something certainly that we need to be even more aware of, I think, this year and moving forward. So thank you so much for sharing your insight here. I Is there anything else before I go into my wrap up of the show that you would like to leave our audience with? Maybe some tips or anything there?
Yeah, so I don't want to sound as a broken record, yeah, guys, you need to patch, right? You need to patch and to do it timely, but I'm not naive. I understand the challenges, to first of all, to identify the assets, right? And that you have in your network and the software composition, right? And all the components, just to understand where the threat might be and what might be vulnerable. That's the first challenge. The next challenge is how do you do in a timely manner, right? Understand, the risk for the production and for the business. It might introduce the downtimes or maybe introducing some potential bug with incompatibility with the new patch, with the system. So yeah, that's why I really believe in security in layers. It's not just a buzzword.
Yeah.
Definitely, guys, we advise to acquire good tooling to identify assets, right? Manage the assets and have real-time detection, protection, and containment of those threats like firewalls, web application firewalls, EDR, network segmentation. Those tools really help you and give you, again, to the human element, right? It buys you a very precious time to patch, right? To at
Yes.
least to start blocking the initial exploitation attempts. Maybe we can talk about those devolution, maybe, and the zero-day kind of vulnerability windows next time. Yeah.
Yeah. Next time, for sure. That's a whole other topic. But yes, it's a good reminder to patch, even though it is very basic. The basics do matter quite a bit, and they can have quite an impact. So thank you so much for joining us, and thank you, Maxim, for chatting with me and giving away and discussing your insight. For next time, I can't believe it's already over. Next time, we're going to have on the February 28th, we're going to have Valentine vulnerabilities. So we'll be talking about what has happened in security between now and next show. So as I mentioned before, you can check the attachments tab down at the end of the webinar. Be sure to check out our SIG page. It's the best way to keep up with our research is akamai.com/security research. Keep up with all the awesome things that Maxim, his team, and the rest of the researchers are doing. You can also bookmark this page to make sure you never miss an episode and reach out to us on X at Akamai_research or brighttalk@akamai.com is a direct email address. Feedback is super important. So anything that you want to hear about, anything you liked or didn't like, we want to hear it all. Thank you so much. You will receive an email with a link to the on-demand for this, so you can share that out too and go back and rewatch the awesome commentary that Maxim provided. And we'll see you next time. Cybernara, y'all.
Bye.